down just a tiny.
Hi, everybody. We're just trying to get it centered. We have the chair in a different position, so we're trying to see if we can get it to work. I hope everybody can see me. Uh, Always a little frustrating for me because I like to be able to see everybody else. Anyway, which brings up, I think we have a seminar in September for
In person in Ottawa.
in person in Ottawa, and one with the UK
October 17th.
in October 17th. Yeah, great.
Online, not in person.
Online. Yeah. So here is a question from Bronwyn Rees. Uh, and I always find this question interesting, at least part of it anyway, Bronwyn. It says, I'm wondering if you can talk about how we can become more able to infuse love with a capital L into the plane when our focus involvement is so much being in love, small l, with our personality. Or are they eventually the same? One would only hope, and then that would be interesting. If so, is the difficulty in expression of loving just a part of where we are in a movement towards it? Okay. Okay, let's try this. We'll see how it works. Our whole personality development is based on a kind of loving of us, the way we're attempting to create it, however that is. It's a dilemma because one of the difficulties with this is that sense of loving is partly a relationship with how our parental background was. And it's hard for us to see that. In other words, yes, you act like your father, you act like your mother. Not always the same way, but there's an energetic component here. And that energetic component is that there is a transmission through them, from them, to, through them and from them. The dilemma is that the dominant factor for all of us is from them. And I would say that's a dominant factor, meaning the impact of a person's personality is upon us. And we take that as a model. It doesn't mean that model is always in vogue, always operating. Often that model shows up when you're under pressure. Now, that means when you're engaging with others. It also means when you're engaging with yourself internally. And the dilemma with that is that you as an individual, me as an individual, all of us as individuals, operate in a manner that relates to valuing and devaluing the world around us and how it affects us and how we engage with it. It sounds as if our images that we protect and make presumptions about are quite clear and precise, related to exactly how we see them and how they should be seen by others. That last part is a totally different mix. People do not see you the way you think they should. And therefore, we have internal responses to that. Then we engage with others and we do not see them the way they are. We see them the way we believe they are. And that belief system is based on a lot of ways that your parental background saw things. Some of that is very positive, and some of that is kind of misreading, because we also misread our parental backgrounds. And they, of course, misread us as we are growing as a child. And perhaps as an adult too, because they get practiced in misreading. The same as we practice misreading. That does not mean that it's always negative. We're not built to personally perceive everything in a correct manner, in spite of how some people think. We do not perceive them exactly the way they are. And we are not perceived exactly the way we are either. That can be very positive in some cases, in some moments of our life. And also, that can be not so positive in other moments of our life. Putting a lot of thought on this and looking at both sides of the fence, in other words, how does another person perceive you? They often perceive you relative to a defensive posture that they have within them about their particular image or engagement with how they believe they are and believe others should see them that way. It's a little mixed up. But if you think through this, there's no reason in the world why others should see you exactly the way you are. They are too busy loving themselves and automatically then featuring how they see the world in a set of circumstances in their particular way of engaging and understanding that things should be. And they are not always right, and either are we. This is fundamental in everyone's case. Don't care who. Very interesting, this thing, because the curiosity of thinning out the images and the responses that we have around other people and around ourselves cannot then be perfectly right as well, or perfectly wrong for that matter. You'll come at yourself in a manner that relates to, and Freud used to say, the super-ego's version of, in other words, how a person judges yourself or others is based on a kind of internal training that relates to how a child thinks his parents or her parents are going to come at them. And then what can they do to not have them come at them that way? It's a real mix-up. It's a dilemma, because it ends up making a kind of general area inside of you where you literally, when you come up and you start judging the world, and I don't care who it is, you judge them based on how you were judged. You become the judger and how it was trained. The problem is you don't see it very well. Well, with a little in the old version of engaging with life, to help get that lesser love to be a little thinner in its unobserved capacity into an observed capacity, one way or the other, you begin to learn how to meditate. Well, boy, that's a dandy, because I think the next question is about meditation. And there are many ways to meditate. But then, what are you trying to do when you meditate? Interesting question. Many answers to that as well. But one of the primary answers is, are you willing to allow yourself, nice and easy, over time, to thin out the important love that you give to you being the way you are and never changing? Never changing what? Good question. The intensity of the energy that makes up a person's personality, physically, emotionally, intellectually, and bringing it all together, how you value, how you need to value you in a manner to make you feel okay in your day-to-day. Now that is really not so simple. It's simplified by saying, if you do this, that will happen. If you do that, that will happen. If you do this, it will happen. But what will truly happen as you thin a bit that intensity that you insist on keeping, because it's the only part of you that you believe is important. That particular insistence makes things thicker. And an attempt to understand it, not align with those who are trying to help you, but understand it within you on your own, is difficult. Because if you make a successful entry in this position, then you become valuable. If you make another one in that position, you become valuable. If you make a not so great one in that different position, another position, you often can't perceive it because you are protecting the structure that's already there. So now look, this is background music. It's not negation. If you begin to see that, then you begin to understand that others do the same thing. Okay. Now, if that is true, others do the same thing. As they are growing, one can say, so many self-help ideas, it's amazing. As one is growing, what they are actually doing is attempting little bit by little bit to get to the point of seeing a little bit better and attempting to adjust a little bit at a time. Then, slowly beginning to see when they are functioning in a manner that relates to how they really want to be inside without knowing how they really want to be inside, they slowly begin to see a kind of internal version of how they want to really be inside. And they're shocked. I'll give you a version. Pretty common. Everyone wants to be right, no matter what. You want proof of that? Take a look at the world. The history of our world has not changed much. It's become more sophisticated. But change? There is an attempt to be willing to find some kind of a balance in things where both parties can be winning a little bit, and perhaps in that kind of communication losing a little bit. This is very hard. It used to be called the win-win theory, and a lot of books written about it. You can find them. It's all based on personality stuff, and it's good to know, good to be maybe helped if you haven't had very much experience in that territory. It isn't win all the time. It's understanding. And that's still personality oriented. But you begin to understand more about yourself when you start looking at these things. The dilemma with making a gap, thinning the personalities, just or unjust need to be validated constantly, is that an inner level, a capital L love, one could say, which is with us all the time, that inner level can come up and express itself. Now, hold on. It's expressing itself. Now, the personality, small l love, as it grows, can watch and see it expressing itself. In the first levels, definitely. The lower levels grab onto that expression and say, I am great because it's expressing in me. Then it pulls back and becomes as it was before. Because the nature of it is not to see the difference between the two. Not negative, just doesn't see it. It becomes elevated within itself for a purpose, whatever that naming of the purpose is. It could be spiritual, it could be material, it could be walking on water. But the water definition is based on whatever you think might be true and more true than other people's truth. In fact, that holds you into a pattern where that pattern is so strongly formed that nothing can get in it beyond what you think that pattern needs to be like. This is the nature of us. One thing that's always been talked about, prayer, really helps thin it a bit. Mantras in the old traditions, thinking of higher states all the time. Well, we don't do that in the West too well. We think about how right we are all the time, and therefore that becomes a mantra where it holds you in a particular position, and naturally this becomes the theme of your life. So if you have an idea in your mind, the more you think that idea is right, or the more people agree with you, then it must be more right. That is not a frontiers person, if one could say that out loud. And none of us do very well with that because our frontiers are already gauged for us. If you are have this kind of belief, you are right. If you have that kind of belief, you are more right. If you have that kind of belief, you are right. This is the nature of what we do. It's no negativity attaches where we are in our development. We tend to be that way. If you want to move into a state, because you mentioned that, where they come together, that business of humility becomes very difficult for us. It's not just a statement, it's an engagement, and it's a very scary one, because living life as if you're humble, where's the credence in that? Unless you have some sort of structured belief around what it looks like. You try to act it that way, and people will be really surprised. And, oh yeah, very, very much. He's very humble. She's very humble. And then you act out in other ways as if you are the right humble. This is very interesting. Sri Chinmoy came up with a statement that relates to humility. And he said, we haven't crossed into that territory yet as a species. I agree with him. I think we touch it from time to time. But it's something coming from the inside as well, where you can watch it, and it's there in you, and you know it's there. And you're not putting on a guise or an act to fool people with it. I think that could be really scary for people. Very much so. Because it takes away the definition of credibility as you have engaged with it from the time that you learn stuff from your parental background. Most parental backgrounds say, I want you to be in better ways than I am now, because they care for you. And you know how difficult life can be. That's honest. So they teach you how to lift yourself up, because that's the definition that lies here on these planes. Once met a gentleman in an Eastern country who desperately didn't want to be known as how able he was. And he was hiding. And he hid well. But then he reached out to engage with someone that was able to perceive him as a person filled with a higher state of loving. And that person recognized he didn't want anyone to know that that was what was going on. In that moment, he was as open. The word changes. The definition is the same, but the word changes. He was open, and energy flowing through him to be helpful relative to the need of another person. Not his need to show how helpful he was. The opening allowed that lower love to stretch into zero, into humility. And that higher love operated through that stretch because the thinness was gossamer. We can't understand how thin that would be. I think that that's a very rare being. I think when you ask the question, could that particular thing happen? Well, it happened at least 2 or 3 times that I'm aware of, but that in our cases is mixed with our personas, our images, because of the nature of the landscape that we are involved with as a human being. And this includes all the religious backgrounds, philosophical backgrounds that exist. Because of the rightness and the need to, at least in the early stages, to be more right than anybody else. But that is not a negative thing in our world. It is a thing that occurs. And it occurs because we are still in learning modes related directly to growing. So these background expressions of love are not negative for doing that. It looks that way sometimes, but they're not. That is the version and their need to be that version for the purpose that relates to their belief. And that is the belief that they and only they have a form of rightness that can be helpful to others. And the truth is, they're all helpful to others because at their center is a tremendous level of loving that is deeper than the definitions that call for an alignment with a level of loving. And this is hard for us to make sense of internally, because our focus is still on lower case L in loving. And that is still loving. If you try to understand it that way, then suddenly you're engaging from time to time with a sense of loving, and you don't know where it comes from. That is in every background. Many have talked about this level that is tremendous, beyond belief. And then suddenly, to protect and engage within ourselves in the territory that we are exposed to, we are again engaged directly with how we think we need to be in a world that is the way it is. And of course that includes whatever we think might be more valuable on an individual basis. And this is just us. I like this question because it's a question that everyone should ask. What level of loving would you be able to handle? Would you be able to handle open, where no engagement with your personalization is available to you? This is an honest question. This is not so simple. If you feature your personalizations, they can get to the point where they believe they have the most right way to engage with life. They are in love with themselves, tightly, holding against open. How can you blame somebody for doing that? You may not agree with it, but blaming them? How is that possible? Because if you truly understand that statement, by blaming them, you are tightening up yourself to such a point that you cannot allow open. So, it may be difficult for us currently to answer that question, to even consider the possibility of allowing a sense of open to occur too long. Some utilize an idea to help concretize, help people to understand. And the idea is an idea of initiation, where a level of open occurs and stretches the stiffness in us to the point of being unbearable, and then we're allowed to come back in, forgetting a lot of the stuff that we had in that turmoil of stiffness. and slowly making our way back into a versioning of a new balance where we could actually, with no disrespect to others, begin to see just a little bit beyond what we believed was the only valid thing that existed previously. That visitation of openness that affected and thinned out some of the stuff that we would never want to leave unknown to us. We have no idea that that is built in within us. But it is, relative to the engagement we have with life here now. And relative to the engagement we have with ourselves, whatever that may be. No negation is involved with that. Elocution, the way people talk about, if you're not like this, then that is a symptom of lower love. No negation with that. No, it's there, and unfortunately, that is the temptation of any engagement with learning, with idealization of what you believe has to be the only truth. And a sliver of truth is involved with those things until you have a different idea within you that may make a slight little difference of sense, but opening helps you to understand whatever you believe differently. An act of love is loving. That's hard to hear. An act of love, an opening, is loving. An act of love for you is loving. A flow of love that we all use to help ourselves to be loved is loving. It's not so simple to understand this. Philosophers have been looking at this, and religious folk all over the world have been looking at this. And it's a dilemma, but an interesting one. Meditation focuses on thinning some of these very strong needs that we have to be a certain way, otherwise we are not considered valuable as to the definitions of us. Interesting. I think we've come a little way. And of course, there are different modes and ways of talking about meditation as well. And there's always that which is the best and what will it do? Renderings are interesting to me because it often is focused, those renderings are focused on us as individuals. How can it improve you? How can it improve my personality? I just talked quite a while about that one. It often, and I think next time I'll probably talk about that more with Pat's question, it often increases the susceptibility to change. And at the same time, it increases a willingness, ever so slight, to go beyond the unseen purposes that you already have within you. And it makes you vulnerable. And your vulnerability makes you protected. And it becomes, as you grow, a recognition of a dialogue that needs, from one perspective, to be always with you, no matter how you grow and how able you become. Because becoming able is not the goal. Because able is defined by us as things you can do, not inner growing. Things you can do. It's classified as doing so that your personality can be recognized. That holds you tighter. If you're talking about linking up, it slows the process down. And I'm thinking, sometimes that's a good thing. And here's the reason. Remember, initiation? Opening your personalizations so that more energy can operate through, not in amount, in level of subtlety, to be truly helpful, where a person really needs the help to help them grow internally. Just an idea. If you wouldn't mind, think about it. You'll forget it quick enough, as all of us do, because we are human beings, attempting to grow. And once we end up with certain levels where we think we've really grown, we've tightened up again. Grow slowly, honestly, respectfully, the best you can. And the rest of us will try to do the same thing. I wish you well. We're going to meditate now. We have a little bit of trouble with our meditation music. So at this particular point, we're going to play it, and hopefully everyone can hear it. And we'll bring you out at the end. It'll roughly be someplace roughly around an hour or so. I wish everyone well. And remember, you are growing. And that is really important to know. One bit at a time makes it real. Take care, everybody. And now we'll just begin to do the balancing and grounding. And have a good evening, everybody.